I am an indie game developer who can't develop games. And what I mean by that is I'm making an indie trading card game, a digital one, without any of the skills that a person traditionally needs to do exactly that. To develop a digital trading card game, there are some essential skills, foundational ones that you will need to see you through. First and foremost being the ability to code, that is to create something out of nothing in a digital space. It doesn't matter what engine you use, what software you're using, so long as you can breathe life into a project using your coding skills, that is the first box ticked. It doesn't have to be extensive because again, there are engines that you can use, but you need to be able to code at least a little bit. You also need solid art and sound design, and I say need loosely there because there are those projects that take the internet by storm despite sometimes intentionally not having the greatest art or sound design, not presenting the best. But you have to remember that that is entirely up to chance. For every success story that you hear about on the internet that just really blew people's minds, there are hundreds of games, if not thousands, that are dead on arrival because they didn't polish up their game the way that it needed to be polished before releasing it to the general public. Now, you may think that your game is going to be different, but I liken it to trying to create a viral meme on purpose. You can't predict what the internet is going to take to necessarily, and rather than shooting in the dark, I feel like it's a safer option to hedge your bets and create something of a high quality that attracts people on the basis of its quality. Having great graphics doesn't guarantee your success, but the internet is weird, wild, and unpredictable, so I feel like it is the safer route to go down. Now, if we're only talking about the creation stage of making a digital trading card game, the last thing that you need is game design, solid game design, and funny enough, that is the only thing on this list that I actually have in my back pocket to bring to the table. And it is, in my opinion, the most important piece of the puzzle. So that's kind of good, for me anyway. See, I can flesh out the idea for a concept in about a day. I can turn a fledgling idea into a fully expansive grid of various mechanics and systems for a game with relative ease, but that only gets you so far when you're actually trying to release a project rather than just conceptualizing one. When designing Summoner's Nexus, I knew that I was going to need to outsource to make up for the skills that I didn't personally have. Now, yes, I could learn, and to an extent I did for certain things. I already had a bit of a background in music, for example, so that was very useful when translating into what we needed for the game. But overall, I wanted this game to be released in a reasonable space of time, so we outsourced. The very first thing that I tried to do was look to friends, but it's very difficult to build a game on just good intentions, especially when you don't have that much financial backing and people have full-time jobs, so I ended up looking to Fiverr. Now, I'm just gonna put this out there, I am not sponsored by Fiverr in any way. Maybe I should be, given how much I have used the service, but I'm also not even recommending that you use the service because it does come with its own risks in terms of what you receive for the money that you put in, depending on who you work with. I would be much more keen to recommend individual sellers on the site, people that I've used myself before, than I would be to recommend the site as a whole, and that's not Fiverr's fault. It's just anyone can become a seller on the app. There were a lot of misses. There were more hits, but there were misses when trying to find the people that would eventually become a part of my team. That being said, I would be nowhere near where I am in terms of the development of this game without using Fiverr as a resource. I was already using Fiverr to try and find artists to create my webtoon that Summoner's Nexus is technically based off of, but that's a story for a different day if you don't already know the story. The reason why that webtoon matters now is that I decided to use the panels from that webtoon as the basis, the foundation for the art in my indie game, to make sure that it was of a high quality, effectively killing two birds with one stone, because it would have been so much more expensive to hire someone to create each card individually. You would think that that would bring the quality of the artwork down because it is made for webtoon, but if anything, it skyrocketed it because of the skill of the artist that I was working with. And so just like that, my art design box was ticked when it came to my game's design. I genuinely got very lucky. I'm glad that I had the idea. I won't call it all luck. It was a very good idea to use the art from the webtoon and the artists from the webtoon to create the card art for this game. I am lucky that it worked out as well as it did though. Now, when it came to the project's sound design, I was also benefited by the work that I had already put in on Fiverr when trying to make my webtoon. Before I had even finished writing the webtoon, I was on Fiverr working with musicians to create anime-style backing tracks and background music that would play on webtoon as people read through the comics, because I have a bad habit of getting ahead of myself, but things always seem to just work together for my good because lo and behold, that ticked the sound design box for the game. Now, once it was time to start looking for a developer, my first thought was to go to existing game studios and asking what it would take to commission them to make the game for me. And what I got back was in the range of 50 to 100,000 pounds. I'll never forget this. The very last group of people that I reached out to actually scheduled a meeting with me where we went over what I was expecting, what I wanted, and the budget that I had. And they said that you would have to pay nothing less than 50,000 upfront and then more over time, potentially, in order to create this game. Now, I was on a teacher's budget, a teacher's salary at the time, and the woman who I was speaking to, laughed in my face. She laughed on the call when I explained the kind of budget that I was on. And so it was at that point that I realized trying to do something with a big corporation where I'd have to do everything all at once up front was never going to work. I was willing to put in that kind of money. It's just I didn't have that kind of money up front. It was going to take a long time. And so I looked to Fiverr, again, because of the one and done, sort of separated method through which you can pay, right? If I can afford to hire someone this month, I hire them, maybe take a break next month, hire them again the month after, maybe even make a plan with the seller that I'm working with. That way I don't go over budget for any given month and I can continue to, exist and live my life. I messaged quite a few people on Fiverr trying to find someone who was a good fit, and initially I started working with someone who I thought would be, but ended up just not being able to deliver the quality of what I wanted. And on top of that, their communication and consistency was just poor, just very, very bad. So I ended up not going with them. Eventually I stumbled across my current team, and even though we had some hiccups, some pretty big hiccups at the earlier stages, over the years we have developed just an excellent working relationship with one another. Now, I have to give extremely detailed briefs in order to get what I'm after design-wise when working with people on Fiverr, whether that be through humming, singing, creating a reference video, finding reference images, acting something out on Tabletop Simulator, just anything to give them an idea of exactly what's in my head because no one else is in there. But it has proven to be extremely effective. There have even been times where I just draw or create a mock-up grid of things. It could be literally anything. And there are oftentimes a lot of revisions that need to go into it to get it to look exactly the way that it needs, and a lot of explanation videos and so on and so forth. But again, I am very happy with the quality of work that has started coming out, and I love the fact that if there's just a month where I can't afford to work, I can just pause development and start again when I'm ready. We haven't had to stop for a good couple of months now though, almost a year, which is really, really good. So that's how I built my team and acquired the skill sets that I was after when making my indie trading card game. There were other steps, other outsourcing that I did, like for example, going back to my home country, Nigeria, finding developers and artists there, so on and so forth. But that is the bulk of how I achieved the current team that I have. If you enjoyed this devlog, if you can call it that, even though it's not a traditional devlog, consider subscribing, like the video, join our Discord community to stay up to date with, the developments of the game, when you can play it, so on and so forth, and have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.